Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Gelvin Valley, made by Wild Wild Wes for Farming Simulator 15. Enjoying this beautiful map, and we are in the middle of harvest. My tractor is stuck right here in the gate. Never fear, I think it's a matter of turning on course play. But first, maybe to help him out, I should get his combine going that he depends on. And you know what? I'm going to turn him on. I'm going to hit higher. But he isn't going to go until I probably... Yeah. Let me see if I can get him to go. Let me find his combine. No. What are you headed that way for? You ditzel. Alright, let me show the... Oh, I see. You know, yeah, I think sometimes a vehicle can get confused when it's really close together and it's got to figure out which waypoint to use. Which way are these little arrows? That's headed that way. I want to head this way, so he's going to come up here on the left. So what if I try to get right here? How will that work? Nearest waypoint, current, nearest, how about that? There, much better. All in how you tickle the mod. Alright, we'll leave starting and ending on, even though it kind of has leaves the signs at the end. I don't exactly like it, but oh well. Yep, we're coming right up here to field 32. Our combine is awaiting clear at the top of the hill. So we'll see if our driver here can negotiate the turn. We ended up having to move our pickup with the fuel trailer because a car came through, as I recall. Alright, did you find it? Good. Still haven't figured out how to go around the crop. You know, it's really interesting. Let me see where that is. I think it's called pathfinding. Yeah, activated. Now, stay out of the fence. Stay out of the fence. Yeah. Oh, this thing. Okay, you're turning. There's like a certain amount of space that it always gives. And then it does brain dead, dopey things like that. Alright. Can I point you in the right way? No, because you are recalcitrant. Obviously, this map was not designed or intended for course play. Let's remove the combine assignment. We'll send him driving once a combine passes here. There we go. No combine in reach. No thanks to you. Alright. So, yeah, we're in the middle of harvesting this field. We'll keep it going here. Oh, I was commenting on pathfinding. Yeah, I had that up here. It's activated. So, when you have a combine whose pipe is in the fruit, meaning like if he was heading down this hill, his pipe is on the left side of the machine, which we could see over here, so it would be in the fruit. And as long as the pipe is in the fruit, it tells the driver to stay away, because of course they don't want you to run over the crop. But for whatever reason, when it comes from this point down here and charges uphill, it has no qualms about driving over the crop. It's just kind of interesting that they built that in, which was a good idea, but it still doesn't stop the tractor from driving right over the top of the fruit. And I think in later versions of Farming Sim, they worked on that some more, made some improvements, and now it's almost kind of comical watching it. It will dip into the crop, drive out, dip in, drive out, as it's looking for it and looking for a path around when it knows it has somewhere to go to find the combine. Anyway, I wanted to, in this particular episode of just chewing the fat or whatever, I was listening to a farming sim episode by a friend of mine here the other day. His name is Russell, and I'm going to leave a link to this particular episode, or at least to his channel, in the description of this particular video. But he was, I got to remember now, I seem to recall he was telling a story about looking for some housing, was it, for his son? Perhaps going to college, maybe? I just don't remember. I know Russell listens to these. He'll probably leave a comment that corrects everything I'm saying. But I think I'll get the gist of the story, which is when they went to look at a particular place, Russell noticed that when they opened the door, he could smell that sweet, sweet smell, tongue-in-cheek here, of marijuana. And they were knocking on doors, I think, to look for a place for his son to stay. And Russell knew upon opening the door that this particular place was not going to be appropriate for his son. Now, why did you do that, tractor? But he was talking to and I think they made a hasty exit, or he did, there was someone that came to the door, and so they talked to this person, and as I understood the story, Russell basically tried to get them out of it as quick as he could to move on, because he knew that this, wasn't going to be a suitable place for his son. So they left, and then he was talking to his son later and asked him if, I forget how he said it. Russell, you're going to have to help me out. But he basically asked his son if he knew or if he smelled something, when the door opened, and if he knew what it was or something to that effect. And his son had smelled something, but didn't know what it was. And I don't remember how old his son was at the time, when this was. If this was for college or whatever, he'd probably still be a fairly young man, probably still living at home. I don't remember if Russell said how many years ago this was, but I remember, as a dad, he was just expressing how pleased he was, that his son did not know what that smell was. Now, what I'm not going to ask Russell is how he knew what that smell was. Oh, this dipsy doodle, having trouble going out the door. But I wanted to share a story that is kind of similar in some ways, that happened in my own life. I think I've told people in here I am an accountant by training, and I got out of college. This was 1996, so yeah, I'm getting to be an old geezer. Got out of university. I spent 4 years in Portland, kind of up north of where I live now. It's the largest city in the state of Oregon where I live here in the U.S. And so it had a number of these large international accounting firms that had some offices up there. And so after graduating, I went to work for one of these, and really enjoyed it. I mean, it was 4 years. It was a great learning experience being up there. And I know one of the things I told them getting there is, I have a high degree of interest in agriculture. That's why I play farming sim all the time. So I asked them, to put me on every single agriculture job that they had. And, I was willing to travel because I realized some of these jobs were locations that were way out of the city, of course. Very few ag enterprises just had their headquarters, in the city of Portland or whatever. So they obliged, and, I remained grateful for that. It made for some very interesting work. Took me out in the country to various places that I otherwise maybe wouldn't have been. But one of those jobs that I got myself on, and I was in their auditing department, so most of my time, I had a brief stint in their tax department, but most of my time was out auditing or working with companies to help them prepare their annual financial statements. So that's kind of what my role was, just being an auditor in the field and helping with all that. And one of these jobs that we had was a meat packing plant, and it was owned by, I believe, some Japanese investors. There was apparently they felt they could get their beef, and I think they also had pork, beef and pork, for whatever they had going. I could say the name of the company, but I would just assume not. And so they had kind of a subsidiary over here in the States, and way down on the southern end of the state that I live in a town called Klamath Falls, they had a meat packing plant down there. And yeah, so we packed up. That's about a 4.5 hour drive from my home to get down there. So we were set up to do the audit down there. One of the subsidiaries that they had was also a cattle ranch in Northern California. So Klamath Falls is just above the border. I don't know, it's maybe half an hour's drive from the border with California. And we also were tasked with auditing a cattle ranch. And I mean, you know, some people, they look at the job of an accountant and think it's just boring, and that all we do is look at numbers on a page all day. And I gotta say, that isn't true at all. You know, especially for if you're a junior auditor in one of these large accounting firms, we are rarely in the office, and frequently we're out at clients, you know, and of course we'd be in their office too. But I mean, we got to go to a cattle ranch. I mean, how cool is that? Yeah, I guess the combine is full. Let's see if we can see where our, oh yeah, he's making his way from storage. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time here. So, I mean, we were literally out on, you know, when you think of California now here, you think of a lot of times big cities, you think of anything but agriculture. But there is actually a huge amount of agriculture that takes place in California. It's a huge industry down there. A lot of wonderful people in that is nowhere near some of the kook fringe stuff that we hear a lot of times come from California. So anyway, we were on this cattle ranch in Northern California, rolling grass hills kind of up in there, and it probably was maybe an hour and a half, 2 hour drive from Oregon, where we were, from their meatpacking plant. I don't know what it was, but I mean, pretty simple. That's where they had the cows. When the cows were ready, they would ship them up to the meatpacking plant. They would slaughter the cows, turn them into steaks or whatever they did with them, so forth and so on. And so we spent a fair amount of time down there doing some procedures. You know, it's kind of funny, kind of as an aside, going to this meatpacking plant down there. You know, I was with two other guys, and they were great guys. They were both ex-military. One, I think, was in the Air Force. The other had been in the Marine Corps. But basically, we're city guys, if I can say it that way. And I don't know that I was particularly a country guy, but I had spent a fair amount of time working on farms and being around agriculture my whole life. So I knew some of the basics of that. So we pull up to this processing plant, and we get out and start getting our equipment. I just sniffed the air and I said, "Oh, they are processing hogs today." And one of the guys, he looks at me, he says, "How can you tell that?" It's like, well, anybody who's been around hogs or cattle, you know there's a distinctive smell of their poop. Just to put it in plain English. You know that they smell differently, and it's not hard to tell at all which animal is which, just based on the smell of their excrement. But you know, if you've never been on a farm or never had opportunity to kind of see that, then I guess you don't know what you don't know. So that was kind of funny. And then, but like I say, to Russell's story, the thing that I wanted to share that was similar to it is we drove back and forth a couple times between the processing plant and the cattle ranch. And wouldn't you know it, in Northern California, there's this little town on the interstate, the main road artery kind of coming out of Oregon into California, I-5, Interstate 5. It's a town called Weed. And I gotta say, it never entered my mind. I haven't been to California that many times, but going through weed, I mean, weed was just another town. I mean, we all have weeds, right? We're gonna go over to this. Hey, figure out there's a comment. There you go. We have weeds in the garden, weeds in the flower bed, weeds in the grass. Weeds. Well, that's kind of about where my mind stopped, forgetting that there is another thing called weed in this life. Well, so we'd been in the car for a little while, so we stopped in the town of Weed to refuel, and we went in to use a restroom or whatever. And this particular time, I went in first, and it was just a small hole-in-the-wall place, we went to, and so I come out of there and I tell these guys, I said, man, I do not know what they're using for cleaner in this place, but it stinks in there. Not stink because it's a bathroom. It was some other smell, and I just assumed it was whatever they used as a cleaning agent, soap or whatever to... Well, needless to say, when my ex-military companions went in there, they came out laughing at me and said, hey man, that's pot. Don't you know what pot smells like? And I said, no, I did not know what pot smelled like. And I gotta say, I couldn't even tell you, I couldn't even describe it to you now as to what it smelled like. Russell kind of mentioned something sweet. I would not call this sweet at all. It was foul, disgusting. And, I just remember going through that. It's like, you mean people smoke this stuff willingly and not under duress? I mean, there must be something in it that people go for or whatever, but I sure couldn't make heads or tails or figure out what it was. But I did not know what pot smelled like until I encountered the little town of Weed in Northern California on this audit that I was doing with these ex-military guys. So they teased me about that for a long time. Thought it was funny that I was so naive that I didn't know what pot smelled like. But I don't mind that I didn't know what that was. There are plenty of things in life I am perfectly happy not having experienced and don't plan to, and pot smoking is definitely one of those things. Don't need it, don't desire it, and that's that. It's kind of interesting in my profession as a public accountant. There's regulations coming in as places in the U.S. start legalizing pot as a drug. First it kind of comes in for so-called medicinal purposes. Wink, wink, nod, nod. We all know why most people have pot. It's more for recreation, than for medicinal purposes. But I do know there are some who genuinely use it for medicinal purposes. So I know that's kind of how it came into my state, I think, initially. But then our state kind of pulled out all the stops and basically legalized anything and everything. So, and I know a number of other states are following suit. And frankly, I think it's kind of a problem. When you don't hold back anything that people can get their hands on, you might have a handful of people that can handle something responsibly, but there's going to be other people that destroy themselves, and is that really something that society should do? Or, are we going to be so libertarian to just let people, if that's what they want to do, just let them destroy themselves? And that's as close to a political comment as I want to make. It's just to ask that basic question. But for whatever it is, I know in our state and others, they're legalizing it. It's still illegal federally, but on a state level, it's state by state, it's becoming legal, and it's creating challenges even for people in my profession as a certified public accountant. What do you do with this? How do you help a client who grows pot? It's I guess it's a type of farming. For all I know, matter of fact, I'm almost positive I've heard of it before. Isn't there a marijuana or a pot mod? I'm sure somebody somewhere out there has done it. Maybe it comes in the form of a greenhouse. I really don't know. Surely someone somewhere has done it. So that's kind of my pot story, if you will. I've only encountered it once in my life, and once is enough. Don't need to encounter it anymore. All right, dude, can you go to the door? Door. Gate. Let's see if he can find his way out. Come on, you can drive. Go. Yeah, he's at the wrong angle again. We will have to help him out. Yeah, I think I need to redo this route and make it just a wee bit further into the field so he doesn't... Either that or I need to take some collisions off of the fence there. That's probably what I should do. It'd be painful to have to redo this route. So maybe that's what I'll do in a quiet moment. I tried to do some modding in this map here the other day. It's almost like you gotta be in the right kind of mood to mod, and I wasn't. I was trying to put in another stream, one that shows up when the rainfall hits, kind of like I put on, let's see, I'm at the right angle, yeah, on the far side over here on this hillside somewhere. I put one there, but it's so much work, and I just wasn't in the mood here the other day, and I finally kiboshed it without saving, so maybe I'll do that some point. I don't know. There's only so many hours in the day, of course. Well, maybe it's time to fess up. How how naive are you? I mean, it seems like my whole life I've been the one in my group of friends that doesn't know anything about anything. And I think it's part of having a pretty sheltered upbringing. And I'm thankful for that. Looking back, there were for example, I grew up without a television. Mom and Dad, we just didn't have one in the home. They didn't want their children harmed by some of the influences that come across the era of pop culture or whatever, shifting sands of people's thought or whatever that. Anyway, I'll just leave it there. And, to this day, I don't have a television in our home. Kind of for the same reason. I wanted to have a safe haven, make a sanctuary in our home, if you will, that is as peaceful as possible. And I know I don't need to tell anybody listening to this that this world is not a peaceful place. And, we may think we live in a nation that has some amount of prosperity or anybody else kind of in the Western world, depending on where you're at. But even if you're at peace, just think about what it's like, when you pick up a newspaper, well, if there are newspapers anymore, or look at the news on the internet or whatever. There is all sorts of things happening, even in so-called peaceful countries, that can raise stress, anxiety, whatever, in the mind of a person. And if you don't have to have that coming into your home, well then, why would you have it coming into your home? If it's, well, I want to be informed, we can't be uninformed, if we're gonna vote or whatever. And, well, do you think the things you're hearing on the news is really the straight scoop, or are they just lying to you? Is there a narrative? And I don't mean to say I got tinfoil hat on here and, just make everything into a conspiracy, but perspective is an interesting thing, and it's rare that in the news media or whoever it is that someone will admit to their biases, before they tell you whatever news that they have to share. Wouldn't it be interesting if any time we heard something on the radio or television, we knew completely all the facts about a person's bias who was sharing information with us? Or if we just knew the truth. It's like I don't mind hearing hard news or whatever, but I want it to be the truth. Is that too much to ask? And anymore, it seems almost like truth has become a relative thing. Well, this is my truth, or this is your truth. I think what people really mean is this is my perspective. There is only one truth. But people have different perspectives, if they see something a little bit different way. But I digress. I grew up without a TV, so there was tons of things. I have memories of a kid of, If they would talk about something, even wholesome things that happen to appear on television. For example, this program called Little House on the Prairie. Wonderful, wholesome family, children programming or whatever. I didn't have a clue about it until I was much, much older, because our family didn't have a television. We just didn't watch it. So over the years, there's been lots of references to movies and shows and pop culture and singers and this and that I'm just clueless on. And I mean, you can leave a comment. You can tell me if I've missed out on something or not, but I don't know that I have. And I'm not going to say that I'm so naive that I didn't get into some of that. I mean, I sure did. And so, I mean, there's that. I mean, as you age, I think my parents just wanted to try to protect us as long as possible until we were more mature, to maybe be able to in a more healthy way, take the good and sift out the bad, or to be able to know what to do with the bad. Where's our actor? Aha, it's coming. I'll be here just a little bit. Might almost. There's not going to be quite enough room probably to fit the rest of this in the combine. But he's working away at it. So that was just television, but there are other things too for which I am profoundly thankful. It's becoming increasingly rare that a child can grow up in a home with mom and dad, and that it stays that way, and that kids move away from home and they become married and their parents stay together. I know things happen, but it is so devastating to kids, going through when mom and dad have a divorce, and to grow up and not even know what divorce was. I mean, I still remember being that kid, to ask the stupid question in school, when the teacher was trying to, I don't know what the teacher's trying to do, or what grade this was, I don't remember. It was maybe 4th grade, somewhere in there. Talk about, because there's kids in there that had some rougher backgrounds, talk about divorce and some of the feelings that maybe they had or what they were dealing with. And I remember being that kid that said, well, what is a divorce? I just didn't even know what the word meant. And I still remember this other kid. I have no idea where he is now. What was his name? Tyson? I think it was Tyson. Another kid in my same grade, Tyson Lambert, I think that's what his name was. Yeah, go find the combine. But he's the one who told me in very simple, childlike terms, I can almost hear his voice, well, a divorce is where a daddy and mommy don't love each other anymore. That's what he said, and it somehow in my mind clicked, and I understood, at least in a childish way, what a divorce was, and that it was more even that they just didn't love each other, that they separated and they weren't together. But I'm thankful I was naive, that I wasn't in a home where I had to worry about that kind of thing. I never have. To this day, my parents are still together, and they'll be together till they're both in the grave. But I'm thankful that I was, in this instance, that I was that kid that was naive and just didn't know and had to ask a question. So how about all of you? Were you ever that kid? What is something you were naive about that someone had to educate you on? Assuming it's YouTube appropriate. I don't know. I'm just kind of advertising all my naivete here. We're almost done with this field. Let me go back to the combine here. Oh, there goes the bell, I think. The bell rang. It says I have a minute left. Anyway, I don't know how many minutes have gone by. Oops. Oh, all this time I should have been over here. Yeah, looks like I have a little bit more work to do here to finish up winter. Oh, I got it all nice and straight. Oh yeah, there it is. Well, I'll have to finish that up in here at some point. Didn't even give it a thought as I was dealing with my pot story. But were you ever the at kid? Or if you were, quote, the at kid, was it for another reason? And what what was it you got yourself into? You know, we all have different backgrounds and everything, and it shapes us, you know, who we are today. And hopefully, with whatever experiences we've been through, we've learned from it and have hopefully done better for ourselves as a result of having been through it. But anyway, that's my pot story. That's some of my naivete from growing up. It is what it is. Thankful for everything that I've been through, and I'm thankful for all of you for spending a little time with me here on this wonderful map in Gelvin Valley. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.